The mist clung to the riverbank like a shroud, obscuring the distance between survival and starvation. Thella huddled her 3 children closer as the bitter winds of Urix 9 cut through their tattered garments. Her middle child, Van, whimpered softly, his 6 years not yet enough to understand why they couldn't return to the warmth of clan fires. "Hush, little one," she whispered, stroking his ridged forehead with 4 trembling fingers. "The river provides." But the river had provided little these past cycles. A few sickly tubers and the occasional blind fish were hardly enough to keep 4 Vexari alive, especially with winter approaching. Thella's violet eyes scanned the horizon where the humans' vessel had landed 3 rotations ago. Humans were rare on this outpost world, especially since the Meridian conflict had left relations between species strained. This one appeared to be alone, a researcher or perhaps a surveyor. She had watched him from afar, noting his careful movements, the strange instruments he carried, the shelter he had constructed with efficient precision. When Cree, her youngest, began coughing in the night, Thella made her decision. The clan elders had been clear when they exiled her. The mate of a rebel deserved no mercy. Thal had died for his resistance against the military governors, leaving her and the children branded as traitors. No other Vexari would help them. "Come," she said, gathering her dignity like a cloak. "We approach the Skywalker." Her eldest, 14-cycle Nima, grasped her arm. "Mother, the humans take slaves, the elders say." "The elders left us to die," Thella cut in, more sharply than intended. She softened her tone. "We have nothing left to lose, daughter. Better to serve and live than to die free but frozen." They approached the humans' outpost as the twin suns began to set. Thella instructed her children to stay behind a cluster of rocks while she made the initial approach. Her hearts hammered against her ribcage as she stepped into the clearing. The human male stood taller than any Vexari, his skin a warm brown rather than the blue-gray of her people. He looked up from his work, surprise evident in his strange, round-pupiled eyes. "I come in peace," she managed in broken trade speech, falling to her knees and lowering her crested head in the traditional posture of supplication. "I am Thella, widow of Thal the Condemned. I bring an offering." The human set down his tools and approached cautiously. "I'm Dominic Vega, xenobotanist from Earth Coalition. What offering do you mean?" Thella swallowed her pride. "Myself, my children, we serve you, cook, clean, whatever pleases you." She kept her gaze lowered as was proper. "In exchange for shelter, food, protection." There was a long silence. Then, to her shock, the human crouched down to her eye level. "Please stand up," he said gently. "That's not necessary here." Confused, Thella remained kneeling. This wasn't how the exchange was supposed to proceed. "We are strong enough to work. The little one will grow. All can be useful." "I don't want servants," Dominic said, "or anything else you're offering." Desperation welled in Thella's throat. "Then we die. The clan rejects us. Winter comes, please." Her voice broke as she gestured toward her hiding children. Understanding dawned in the human's expression. He glanced toward the rocks where 3 small blue-gray faces peered anxiously. "I'm not turning you away," he clarified, his voice softening further. "I'm saying you don't need to offer yourselves as property. If you need help, I can provide shelter and food, no servitude required." Thella blinked rapidly, her secondary eyelids flickering in confusion. Such an arrangement had no precedent in Vexari society. Clanless ones survived through service or not at all. "Why would you do this?" she asked warily. Dominic's lips curved slightly. "Because where I come from, helping others isn't transactional. It's just the right thing to do." He stood and gestured toward his shelter. "There's a storm coming tonight. Bring your children inside. We'll share a meal, and you can have the secondary chamber until you figure out your next steps." Thella remained frozen, suspicion warring with desperate need. The human seemed to sense her conflict. "No strings attached," he added. "You're free to leave any time." As if to emphasize his point, the first fat droplets of icy rain began to fall. In the distance, Cree's cough echoed across the rocks. "Your little one sounds sick," Dominic observed. "I have medical supplies that might help." That decided her. Thella rose to her feet and called her children forward. As they emerged timidly from behind the rocks, Dominic smiled at them, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. "Welcome," he said simply, holding open the door to warmth and safety. Thella ushered her children inside, her mind reeling. In her experience, nothing in the galaxy came without cost. She would remain vigilant, prepared for the moment the human revealed his true price. Yet as the shelter door sealed against the howling storm, and the sweet aroma of unfamiliar but delicious food filled the air, a dangerous feeling flickered in her chest. Hope. 14 cycles of Vexari wisdom had taught Thela that kindness always carried hidden costs, yet after 3 full rotations in the human's shelter, she remained puzzled by Dominic's behavior. He asked nothing of her beyond basic cooperation in maintaining the living space. He showed her how to operate the thermal controls, gave her children access to nutrient-rich human foods, and even allocated private sleeping quarters for her family. Most bewildering of all, he treated the children with gentle patience rather than the stern discipline expected in Vexari culture. When Van knocked over an array of delicate scientific instruments, Thela braced herself for punishment, only to watch in amazement as Dominic calmly helped the child collect the scattered pieces. "Accidents happen," he said simply. "No harm done." On the 5th night, disaster struck. Cree's cough worsened dramatically, her small body burning with fever as her breathing became labored. Frantic, Thela carried her convulsing child to Dominic's quarters. "Something is wrong with her respiratory system," he said after scanning the child with one of his devices. "It's a bacterial infection adapted to Vexari physiology." "Can you help her?" Thela asked, terror making her voice sharp. Dominic frowned, studying the readings. "I have broad-spectrum antibiotics that might work, but I've never treated a Vexari child before. There could be risks." "Without treatment, she likely won't survive the night." Thela placed her daughter in his arms. "Save her." For hours, Dominic worked with focused intensity, administering medications through a mist that Cree could inhale, monitoring her vital signs with his instruments. Thela watched his hands, so different from her own with their 5 fingers and rounded tips, as they moved with surprising gentleness over her daughter's trembling form. Near dawn, Cree's fever broke. By midday, she was breathing normally again, her small chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm as she slept. "She'll recover fully," Dominic assured Thela. "Her system responded well to the treatment." That night, after the children were asleep, Thela approached Dominic in the main chamber where he sat reviewing data on his terminal. Without a word, she knelt before him and began unfastening the closures of her garment. Dominic startled, his eyes widening as he realized her intent. "Thela, stop! What are you doing?" "Offering payment," she said simply. "You saved my daughter's life. This is how I can repay such a debt." He stood abruptly, putting distance between them. I don't want that from you." Confusion and shame flooded through her. "Is my form not pleasing to humans?" "That's not it at all." Dominic ran a hand through his dark hair, clearly uncomfortable. "Where I come from, we don't. Intimate relations aren't used as currency or payment. They're an expression of mutual desire and connection." Thela slowly refastened her garment, trying to understand this alien concept. "Then how am I to repay this life debt? Among my people, to be indebted is to be enslaved by obligation." "You don't owe me anything," he insisted. "I helped Cree because she needed help, not to create an obligation." She stared at him, her crest flattening in distress. "This makes no sense. All actions create obligation. This is the way of things." Dominic sighed and gestured for her to sit at the table across from him. "Perhaps we should learn more about each other's cultures. There seems to be a fundamental difference in how we view relationships." Over the next cycle, a strange routine developed. During days, Dominic continued his research while Thela maintained the shelter and cared for her children. In evenings, they exchanged knowledge, she teaching him about Vexari customs and language, he explaining human concepts that often left her baffled. "So humans pair bond for emotional reasons rather than clan advantage?" she asked one night. "Generally, yes. Love, compatibility, mutual respect, these are the foundations of our relationships." "Love," she repeated the unfamiliar word. "This means willing sacrifice for another without expectation of return." Dominic smiled. "That's part of it. It's complex, both a feeling and a choice." Outside their small sanctuary, problems brewed. Clan patrols had noticed the arrangement, and whispers spread through the settlement. One afternoon, Thela encountered Bresk, a clan elder, while gathering riverroot with Nima. "The human keeps you well," he observed coldly. "What price does he exact for such generosity?" "He asks nothing," Thella replied truthfully. Bresk's upper lip curled in disgust. Impossible. Perhaps his appetites are too strange to speak of. You dishonor him with such thoughts? Thella snapped, surprising herself with her defensiveness. And you dishonor our ways by accepting charity, Bresk hissed. Better to starve with dignity than live as a human's pet. That evening, Thella was unusually quiet. Dominic noticed, watching her meticulously clean already spotless surfaces. Did something happen today? He asked gently. She hesitated before answering. The clans believe I have surrendered Vexari honor by accepting your help without service. And what do you believe? The question caught her off guard. What she believed had not mattered since Thal's execution. I believe, she began slowly, that honor cannot feed children, but I also believe there is honor in how you treat us with respect, not as inferiors. Dominic nodded, something warm flickering in his gaze. Where I come from, that's the only kind of honor that matters. Later, as she prepared for sleep, Thella realized a profound shift had occurred. For the first time since her exile, she had spoken her own truth rather than clan doctrine. More unsettling still was the awareness that throughout her conversation with Bresk, she had been protecting not just herself, but Dominic as well. In the small room she shared with her sleeping children, Thella touched her chest where an unfamiliar warmth had begun to grow, something dangerously like attachment. Among Vexari, attachment to the clanless was foolish, attachment to aliens unthinkable. Yet as she drifted toward sleep, she found herself wondering what Dominic's five-fingered hand might feel like if it were to touch her face with the same gentleness he showed her children. The season of bitter winds gave way to Urix IX's brief but intense spring. Outside Dominic's research outpost, blue-purple flowers erupted from soil long frozen, their resilience mirroring the unexpected blossoming within its walls. This specimen exhibits remarkable adaptive properties, Dominic explained, as Thella assisted him with cataloging flora samples. It can survive extreme temperature variations by fundamentally altering its cellular structure. Thella examined the plant with newfound appreciation. 2 months ago, she would have simply assessed it for nutritional value. Now she found herself curious about its properties beyond immediate survival utility. Like my people, she observed, we adapted to this harsh environment over generations. Dominic smiled. Exactly, life finds a way to thrive even in difficult circumstances. Their eyes met over the specimen, and something electric passed between them before Thella looked away. These moments were occurring with increasing frequency, brief connections that left her strangely breathless. Beyond the laboratory area, she could hear Dominic teaching the children. He had created a simple education program on his systems, translating human knowledge into terms Vexari younglings could understand. Nima had proven especially adept with mathematics, while Van absorbed languages with startling speed. Even little Cree, fully recovered from her illness, sat for short lessons appropriate to her age. The Fibonacci sequence appears throughout nature, Dominic's voice carried from the adjoining room. It's a pattern we find in plant growth, shell formations, even galaxy structures. Like the sacred proportions in Vexari temple design, Nima responded excitedly. Exactly, mathematical principles transcend species boundaries. Thella felt a surge of pride mixed with something more complex. Her children were learning things no ordinary clan younglings would ever encounter. Dominic was giving them a gift beyond price, a broader understanding of the universe. Later that evening, as the children slept, Thella found Dominic on the small observation deck he had added to the outpost. The twin moons of Urix IX cast complementary lights across the landscape, one silver, one amber. May I join you? She asked formally, still observing some Vexari protocols despite their growing familiarity. Always, he replied, shifting to make space beside him on the narrow bench. They sat in comfortable silence, watching nocturnal creatures emerge along the riverbank. The proximity of his body generated a warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. I've been meaning to ask, Dominic said eventually. The mark on your forearm, does it have significance? Thella glanced down at the spiral pattern etched into her blue-gray skin. It is the symbol of bond union. All mated Vexari bear it. So it represents your marriage to Thal. It represented our clan bond, yes. She traced the pattern with one finger. When he was executed for sedition, tradition dictated I should have it removed. I refused. Why? Because despite his crimes against the governors, Thal was kind to me and the children. The clan called him traitor, but to us he was simply ours. She looked up at Dominic. You remind me of him sometimes. The admission hung in the air between them, laden with unspoken meaning. I'm honored by the comparison, Dominic said softly. A sudden thunderclap broke the moment, followed by the immediate downpour characteristic of spring storms on Uryx 9. They rushed inside, laughing as they narrowly avoided the torrent. In the dim emergency lighting of the main chamber, the storm having disrupted the power systems, they stood close, their breathing audible over the rain hammering the shelter's roof. You're shivering, Dominic observed. Vexari are sensitive to sudden temperature changes, Thello explained. It will pass. Instead of responding verbally, Dominic reached for an insulation blanket and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. His hands lingered there, the warmth of his fingers seeping through to her skin. Time seemed suspended as their eyes locked. Slowly telegraphing his intent to allow her refusal, Dominic leaned forward. Thella met him halfway. The touch of his lips against hers was foreign yet inexplicably right, soft and warm where Vexari mouths were firmer. She tentatively raised her four-fingered hand to his face, exploring the strange smoothness where her people would have slight ridges. Is this acceptable? He whispered against her mouth. Yes, she breathed, surprising herself with the certainty of her answer. Their second kiss deepened, cultural differences forgotten as something more primitive and universal took hold. His arms encircled her waist while her fingers tangled in his hair, fascinated by its texture. When they finally separated, both were breathing rapidly. I've wanted to do that for some time, Dominic admitted, his voice husky. As have I, Thella confessed, though I did not understand the wanting until recently. A crash of thunder reminded them of the storm raging outside, a fitting parallel to the tempest of emotions within. Dominic led her to the seating area, keeping the blanket around her shoulders as they settled close together. This changes things between us, he said, his expression serious. I need you to know that for me, this isn't casual or temporary. Nor for me, she replied. Vexari do not give affection lightly. Then we should proceed slowly, with care for each other and for what this might mean for your children, for all of us. His consideration touched her deeply. Among her people, males claimed what they wanted without such deliberation. The clans will not approve, she warned. Cross-species unions are rare and viewed with suspicion. And does their approval matter to you? Thella considered this. Once clan acceptance had been everything, now. No, she realized. They abandoned us when we needed them most. You gave us shelter when you had no obligation. My loyalty lies with those who have proven worthy of it. He smiled and took her hand, entwining their fingers despite the anatomical differences, 5 digits interlocked with 4. Then we face whatever comes together. As the storm raged through the night, they talked with new openness, about their pasts, their hopes, their fears. They shared more kisses, each one less hesitant than the last, exploring the strange and wonderful territory between their different species. When dawn finally broke, Thella returned to her children's room with her decision made. Whatever complications might arise from loving a human, she would face them. After years of bare survival, she had found something worth the risk. Beyond the shelter walls, she knew, opposition gathered like storm clouds. But within, a new constellation had begun to form, a family shaped by choice rather than blood or clan obligation. The attack came at dusk, when shadows blurred the boundaries between river and land. Thella had been gathering the evening meal with Nima when she spotted the smoke, thick black plumes rising from the direction of Dominic's outpost. Take cover in the cave we found last week, she commanded her daughter, thrusting the gathered food into her hands. Stay there until I come for you. But mother... Go, Thella's voice brooked no argument. As Nima reluctantly retreated, Thella raced toward the burning structure, terror clawing at her throat. The main entrance was blocked by flames, but she knew another way, a maintenance hatch Dominic had shown her for emergencies. Forcing it open, she crawled into the smoke-filled interior. Dominic, she called, Van Cree. A crash from the laboratory drew her attention. Through the haze, she saw figures moving, three adult Vexari males surrounding Dominic, who stood protectively in front of the children. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead as he faced Bresk and two clan enforcers. "Your presence contaminates our world, human," Bresk was saying. "Harboring the traitor's family only compounds your offense." "They've done nothing wrong," Dominic replied steadily. "Your quarrel is with me." Bresk laughed coldly. "Our quarrel is with all who defy natural order. The outcast female obviously bewitched you with unnatural attractions." One of the enforcers moved forward menacingly. "The council has decided. You will leave Urex 9 immediately. The clanless ones will face judgment for their corruption." "No," Thela cried, revealing her presence. All eyes turned to her as she stepped into the room. "My children have committed no crime." Bresk's expression twisted with disgust. "Still speaking when not spoken to, female? Your time with the human has made you forget your place." "My place is protecting my family," she replied, moving to stand beside Dominic. The moment stretched taut with tension before exploding into violence. One enforcer lunged at Dominic while the other moved toward the children. Without hesitation, Thela threw herself at the second attacker, her maternal instinct overriding years of conditioned deference. The fight was brief but brutal. Dominic disabled his attacker with efficient combat moves Thela had never seen him use. She clawed and struck at her opponent with desperate strength, buying enough time for Van to pull Kree behind a fallen storage cabinet. It ended when Dominic activated an emergency deterrent, a sonic pulse that briefly incapacitated Vexari nervous systems. Bresk and his enforcers collapsed, temporarily paralyzed but conscious. "Gather essential supplies," Dominic ordered calmly, though blood now soaked the side of his tunic. "We need to evacuate before the fire reaches the fuel cells." Working swiftly despite injuries, they collected medical supplies, portable food, and Dominic's most important research. As they prepared to flee, Thela locked eyes with Bresk, whose hatred burned even through his paralysis. "This isn't over," he managed to growl. "For today, it is," she replied, no longer intimidated by his authority. They escaped minutes before the outpost's power core overloaded, sending a shockwave through the forest that knocked them to the ground despite their distance. Dominic shielded the children with his body while Thela covered them all as best she could. When the dust settled, they made their way to the cave where Nima waited anxiously. After an emotional reunion, Dominic assessed their situation. "We can reach the emergency bunker at my secondary research site by morning," he said, applying a medical patch to the wound in his side. "It's stocked and secure." Thela nodded, then noticed his grimace of pain as he moved. "You're badly injured." "I'll manage." He tried to smile reassuringly, but the effort failed. Once the children were settled into exhausted sleep deeper in the cave, Thela carefully removed Dominic's damaged garment to properly treat his wounds. The sight of his bare torso, so different from a Vexari male's with its smooth skin and strange muscle configuration, still fascinated her despite their intimate explorations over recent weeks. "Why did you never tell me you possessed combat training?" she asked as she cleaned a deep laceration. "It wasn't relevant to who I wanted to be here," he replied, wincing as she applied antiseptic. "Before becoming a xenobotanist, I served in Earth Coalition security forces, 3 tour in conflict zones." "A warrior," she murmured, "like Thal." "Former warrior," he corrected. "I left that life behind after seeing too much destruction, came here to create rather than destroy." He captured her hand in his. "Until today, I thought I'd succeeded." "You protected us," she said firmly. "Without violence, we would all be dead or worse." In the dim light of their emergency lamp, his eyes looked haunted. "Violence follows me everywhere. Perhaps I was foolish to think I could escape it, or that I deserved peace." Something in his tone made Thela pause. "What happened before you came to Urex 9? Dominic was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "There was a colony, Terra Nova, a diplomatic mission that went catastrophically wrong. I was security lead." His hand tightened around hers. "We missed signs of building hostility. By the time we recognized the danger, 53 civilians were dead, including my wife and son." Thela's breath caught. "You had a family." "Elena was a xenolinguist. Jacob was 6. Pain etched deep lines around his mouth. "I survived because I was checking perimeter defenses when the attack came. I've spent 4 years trying to outrun that failure." Without words, Thela drew him carefully into her arms, mindful of his injuries. He resisted briefly before surrendering to her embrace, his body trembling with suppressed emotion. "You carry too much blame," she whispered against his hair. "One person cannot prevent all tragedy. I should have protected them, as Thal should have protected us from exile, as I should have prevented today's attack." She drew back to look into his eyes. "We are not gods, Dominic. We can only do what is possible in each moment." Something broke in his expression. When their lips met this time, it was with desperate intensity, a shared need to affirm life amidst destruction. Their bodies pressed together, injuries forgotten in the urgent desire for connection. "I can't lose another family," he whispered against her skin. "I can't lose you." "You won't," she promised, guiding him down to their makeshift bedding. "We are stronger together than apart." In the flickering shadows of their hidden sanctuary, they came together fully for the first time, human and Vexari physiology finding unexpected harmony. Cultural differences melted away as ancient rhythms took precedence, their joining both tender and fierce. Thela marveled at the strange perfection of their contrasts, his warm brown skin against her blue-gray, 5 fingers intertwined with 4 soft human sounds meeting Vexari vocalizations. Afterward, holding each other close beneath salvaged thermal blankets, Thela traced the scars on his body, some from today's battle, others from conflicts long past. "When dawn comes, everything changes," she said quietly. "The clans will hunt us now." "I received orders yesterday to return to Earth space," Dominic admitted. "The Coalition is withdrawing all non-essential personnel from border worlds due to political tensions." Fear clutched at Thela's heart. "You're leaving." His arms tightened around her. "Not without you and the children, never without you." "But how?" Vexari rarely receive permission to leave world, especially clan-rejected ones. In the darkness, she felt rather than saw his smile. "I may have spent the past month quietly filing the necessary documentation to register you and the children as my dependents under Coalition humanitarian protocols." Hope bloomed dangerous and bright within her. "You planned this." "I planned for possibilities," he corrected, "and now necessity has made the choice clear." He kissed her forehead gently. "We leave together or not at all." As exhaustion finally claimed them, Thela nestled against the steady beat of Dominic's single heart, so different from her dual organs yet perfectly synchronized with her own rhythm. Outside their temporary refuge, dangers gathered: clan vengeance, military protocols, the vast bureaucracy of interstellar regulations. Yet for this moment, wrapped in each other's arms with her children sleeping safely nearby, Thela allowed herself to believe in possibilities beyond survival. For the first time since Thal's execution, she permitted herself to imagine a future shaped by choice rather than circumstance, a future illuminated by something dangerously close to love. His secondary research bunker had withstood Urix 9's extreme elements for 15 years before Dominic repurposed it. Built into the side of a cliff overlooking the Great Northern River, it offered both protection and a spectacular view of the planet's twin moons. For 3 tense days, it served as their sanctuary while Dominic's wounds healed and they planned their next steps. "The transport vessel arrives in 6 days, Dominic explained as they gathered around the small holodisplay. "If we can reach the spaceport undetected, my credentials should get us aboard." "And if the clans intercept us?" Thela asked, her practical nature asserting itself. "I've arranged a backup extraction with an independent trader." He projected a flight path that avoided the main settlement. "Higher risk, but potentially viable." Nima, who had been studying the maps intently, pointed to a narrow passage. "The ancestral caves run beneath the broken ridge. With a guide, we could traverse the entire distance underground." Thela regarded her daughter with surprise. "How do you know of the ancestral caves? Such knowledge is restricted to initiated clan members." The girl lowered her crest slightly. "Father showed me before his arrest. He said knowledge should never be restricted, especially paths to freedom." Pride and sorrow mingled in Thela's hearts. Even in death, Thal continued to protect his family through the wisdom he had imparted. Their planning session was interrupted by an alert from the bunker's perimeter sensors. On the security feed, they saw not clan enforcers as feared, but Varek, High Elder of the Northern Clan and, more significantly, Thal's father. "He comes alone," Thela noted with cautious optimism. Dominic's expression remained guarded. It could be a trap. Varek never approved of our exile, she explained. Though as High Elder, he could not openly defy the military governors. After careful deliberation, they allowed the Elder entry. Varek's aged form seemed smaller than Thela remembered, his once vibrant blue-gray skin now pale and mottled with time. Granddaughter, he greeted Thela formally. Though not a blood relation, the term acknowledged her former place in his clan through marriage. Elder, she responded with appropriate deference. His ancient eyes shifted to Dominic, assessing. Human, you have created quite a disturbance among the clans. Bresk claims you bewitched this family with alien corruption. Is that why you've come? Dominic asked evenly, to witness this corruption firsthand. Unexpectedly, Varek's mouth twitched in what might have been amusement. I come because my son's children deserve better than exile, and because I am too old to fear political consequences. From within his ceremonial robes, he produced a data crystal. The Council has issued removal orders for all of you, clan judgment disguised as planetary security protocols. The human is to be deported immediately. Thela and the children are sentenced to separation service in the northern labor compounds. Horror washed through Thela at the mention of separation service, a punishment where children were removed from unfit parents and raised in state facilities while adults performed hard labor. That will never happen, Dominic stated flatly, his hand moving instinctively to the weapon concealed at his waist. Varek nodded as if confirming something to himself. Good. Your protection instinct is strong. He placed the crystal on the table. This contains clearance codes for the southern spaceport and falsified transit documents for 4 Vexari refugees, political asylum seekers under coalition protection. Thela stared at him in disbelief. You're helping us escape. I am correcting an injustice too long permitted, the elder replied. My son died fighting systemic corruption. I will not allow his family to be destroyed by the same corruption. Dominic studied the crystal cautiously. Why should we trust this? Because despite what the clans believe, not all traditions deserve preservation. Varek's gaze moved to where the children watched from the corridor. Come, little ones, meet your great sire properly. Over the next hours, an extraordinary reconciliation unfolded. Varek performed the long-overdue naming recognition for Kree, acknowledging her place in the ancestral lineage despite her clan-rejected status. He listened with genuine interest to Nima's advanced knowledge of xenobotany and mathematics, and nodded approval at Van's facility with multiple languages. As night fell, Varek prepared to depart but paused at the doorway. There is one matter unresolved. He turned to face Dominic and Thela. Your union remains unrecognized. This places you both, and especially the children, in a precarious legal position during transit. Thela felt warmth rise to her face. Among Vexari, intimate relationships were never discussed so directly, particularly not with elders present. The Coalition recognizes my guardianship petition, Dominic began, but Varek raised a hand. Coalition protocols are insufficient. You need Vexari recognition as well, or authorities at any checkpoint may separate you. His expression softened fractionally. There is an ancient provision for adoption of the clanless by a clan founder in exceptional circumstances. Dominic looked confused. But I'm not Vexari, I can't found a clan. Can you not? Varek challenged. What is a clan but a group who share resources, protection, and loyalty? You have created such a unit already. Understanding dawned on Thela. The founding oath. You're suggesting Dominic invoke the founding oath. It has not been done in 7 generations, Varek acknowledged. And never by a non-Vexari, but the ancient texts specify any sentient being of moral standing may establish clan protection. Late into the night, after Varek had gone, Thela and Dominic discussed the proposal. Is this what you want? He asked her as they stood on the bunker's observation deck, the twin moons illuminating her blue-gray skin with silver and amber light. To be bound to me by your people's laws as well as mine. Thela studied his face, so alien yet now so beloved. When I first approached you by the river, I offered servitude in exchange for survival. Now I would offer partnership freely chosen. She placed her 4-fingered hand over his heart. Yes, this is what I want. 2 days later, beneath the sacred stone arch at the river's origin point, a ceremony unlike any in Vexari history took place. Varek officiated, invoking ancient texts while making unprecedented adaptations. Thela wore a ceremonial robe adorned with river stones and botanical specimens from Dominic's research, symbols of their joined paths. Dominic wore a tunic embroidered by Nema with patterns representing both Earth and Urik's 9 celestial bodies. Blood of different worlds, purpose of one heart, Varek intoned as he bound their wrists with a cord woven from both Earth cotton and Vexari River reeds. Speak the founding words. Dominic's voice was steady as he recited the ritual phrases Thela had taught him, declaring protection and provision for his clan family. When he faltered over a particularly complex Vexari term, Cree whispered the correction from where she sat perched on Van's shoulders, causing ripples of laughter that somehow enhanced rather than diminished the ceremony's solemnity. When it was Thela's turn, she spoke the traditional response but added words of her own. Not as servant but as equal, not from obligation but from choice, I bind my path to yours and our children's futures together. As the final vows were exchanged, Varek pressed his ceremonial blade first to Dominic's palm, then to Thela's, joining their bleeding hands together. What divergent stars have created, let no force in this galaxy tear asunder, the elder proclaimed. The Vigathal clan is recognized under both ancient law and new covenant. Vigathal, Dominic questioned softly. Your Earth name joined with my late husband's, Thela explained. A new constellation formed from existing stars. That night, in the privacy of the small sleeping chamber they now officially shared, their union was sealed in the most ancient way. Their lovemaking had evolved from initial hesitant exploration to confident knowledge of each other's bodies. Dominic knew precisely how to trace the sensitive ridges along Thela's spine. She had mapped the areas where human skin responded most intensely to touch. My wife, Dominic whispered against her neck, the human term sitting strangely but not unpleasantly on her ears. My bonded, she replied in kind, using the Vexari term that encompassed partner, protector, and beloved. Their bodies moved together with practiced harmony despite their physiological differences. What had once seemed alien now felt essential, the perfect complementary elements of a binary star system locked in mutual orbit. Afterward, as they lay entwined, Dominic spoke of Earth, of oceans larger than Urix 9's entire surface, of cities where thousands of species coexisted, of gardens where plants from 100 worlds grew side by side. Will your people accept us? Thela asked, voicing her deepest fear. Some will, some won't, he answered honestly. But Earth Coalition territories have protected status for interspecies families, and more importantly, he kissed her forehead gently, I have colleagues at the Xenobotanical Institute who would benefit enormously from your knowledge of Urix 9 flora. You won't be dependent or isolated. And the children,